Peace and love. You are now listening to Adult Public Health Podcast, and I'm your host, DeMonte. As always, this is a safe space where we lead with grace and we're always open to learning. And today I'm joined by Alicia Ivory. Thank you so much for joining. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. I had an amazing day today. I spent a lot of time with my family. The sun was shining. It was like 65 today?
Yeah, it was a heat wave.
Yeah, I'll take it. It's been gloomy,
Yeah,
this 30-degree weather, and then not having any sunshine. It's been a beast.
yeah, definitely feel you. So I just am excited to have you here on the show, and just to learn a little bit about you and your journey. If you're not listening and seeing what the piece I see, this is actually, Alicia got her doctorate degree from the Medical College of Wisconsin, and you're doing a lot of amazing things in the community. So I kind of want to start with where you currently are
Yeah,
and some things you're working on, and then we'll kind of work our way backwards a little bit.
yeah, for sure. So I kind of see all the things that I'm working on as like three big like arms. So I call my kind of company, I kind of big like conglomerate. I call it Live Love, right? So there's like Live Love Art, there's like Live Love Community, and there's like Live Love Mind Body, right? And so, of course, like you mentioned, like I'm just finishing up my medical degree, so that's a doctorate in medicine, and then a doctorate in human physiology, vascular physiology. So that's a PhD part. And so that has taken a ton of my time and mental space right now. So the bulk of that is going to be in mind body, so psychiatry. I also have been doing over the last few years psychotherapy with families, couples, children. So that also kind of falls under that mind body piece. So that's, I think, where the biggest chunk of my life is like today. Uh, there's also other things going on today. So under Live Love Art, I publish art, or I'm trying to publish some written works almost exclusively with Black males in this area. So I have a poetry book that I'm kind of getting poetry from people for, and trying to figure out how to kind of incentivize it. So first I was like paying for their work. But then it kind of made them, I don't know, it created a weird dynamic. So I'm kind of restructuring and figuring out what to do to get poetry and also incentivize, because people, we don't have money. I don't have, they don't have money. I don't have money. And so to ask them for their work is important, and they should be compensated in some way. And a poet asked me an interesting question about it, asked me, well, what are you going to do with the money when you sell the book? Which I have another book that I published of just my art, my photography, and it didn't make a lot of money. So I never even thought about what I would do with the money. I think if it did bring in a decent amount of money, I would probably use it to give space for more Black males to do poetry. Because there's a lot of like worth and value in hearing poetry and like watching poetry and all that. But even more than that, there's a lot of value in writing it. Like getting that stuff out and on paper, no matter who's going to ever see it or hear it. If there's a lot of like therapeutic value, I think, in just organizing your thoughts around things. So that's one Live Love Art project that's ongoing. I published a mural book. So during 2020, I think everybody was pretty depressed, but the pandemic and all the unarmed police shootings and all the like crazy rhetoric around vaccines and anti like doctor stuff and kind of people just going crazy had me really down. And at the time I was at home, I have at the time I had 4 kids. I had my 2 biological kids, and I had 2 foster sons. So it was a really stressful time. And we were walking around, going for a walk in our neighborhood, and we started to see people's murals. Like people had painted on the boards that were going up on people's windows so they wouldn't break them.
Yes.
Like people have did paintings on those. There were like paintings on garages, paintings on trash cans. And so I started taking pictures of those. Then I got a real camera, a good camera, and started taking pictures of murals all over. Turns out the Democratic National Convention had like recruited another artist, Mr. Ramirez, to do a bunch of art downtown. So I went through the whole city getting his stuff, and found a bunch of things just everywhere in Tulsa, on the south side. Here, I live on 26th and Burleigh. So there's beautiful artwork just of like fruit and vegetables on the side of this corner store over here. So I just like went everywhere taking pictures and published that as a mural book. And now there's a whole nother set of murals everywhere. There's one right here on Fond du Lac that I've seen. There's some of Giannis downtown that I saw. There's just tons of stuff. There's tons of art to be observed. And something I didn't realize until then, just like the kind of opposite of the poetry thing, is that doing art I always thought was therapeutic. I didn't realize that seeing visual art was therapeutic too. And even now, I'll go through that book and get happy, all over again, seeing some of those works. So what I think I'm going to do is make another one this summer when the weather is good. So that's another reason I was happy for the sunshine.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
That's 2 projects, I think.
Yeah.
Under Mind Body 2, there's some videos, media that I'm putting together, just like mental health media. So there's like one about breathing. It's me, right? So it's coming from African places. So I have one about like it's called Transatlantis. Like it's a very short clip about like we're Black mermaids and mermen and like the trauma of like the transatlantic slave trade and breathing through some of that trauma. And what other videos do I have right now? Oh, I have one about the nature of progress. So personal progress, any kind of progress, like if you're doing a weight loss journey, if you're trying to battle depression, if you're trying to become financially stable, that video talks about how we kind of think progress goes in a straight line like that, and we get disappointed when it doesn't. And it and so when you think of it kind of grossly, you see that it kind of goes and kind of winds. Mm-hmm. But if you zoom in even closer, it's like this.
Yes. And it's like sound waves.
Yeah. And so something that I realized is that even, right, like even me that has done all this gross development and learning and progress, when I'm in that dip, even those small dips, I feel like I'm I feel like I'm like 2007 Alicia again. And I feel all that same fear, all that same guilt, all that same shame. And I think most people do. And we don't really have good ways to talk about that piece. People go, oh, well, you already did this. Don't worry about it. But you do need to wrestle with those feelings of failure, those fears and all those things that come up. Likewise, when you're way at the bottom and you have those kind of high points, you need to kind of realize that you still have some skills to gain to get up high. You may have hit it Potawatomi, but you still haven't got your money management together. So you have more skill acquisition to get. So that's one of the videos that I'm working on right now. And then I'm kind of expanding that whole kind of idea about patterns of progress into a book too. And there's psychiatry and therapy, which is my favorite, I think.
And so I didn't know that you were this multifaceted. And that's one of the things that I love about this podcast is you always learn something new, something you didn't know. And, it's just great for me as a host, but as well as the listener. So like to get to this space, to do all of these things, like, how did that arrive? Like, how did Alicia get to the space where you're now doing all these wonderful things, not only for yourself, but for the community?
Yeah. So I'm super duper duper blessed with great people. Like the number of people that love me and can not just counsel me, but come to my rescue and cheer me on and encourage me and pick me up and and keep me grounded is just numerous. Like my grandparents moved here in the 1950s, like a lot of Black people moved here, both sets of my grandparents, and they moved across the street from each other on 26th Street between Burleigh and Chambers. And so my parents grew up across the street from each other on 26th Street between Burleigh and Chambers, and so did all their siblings. And so I was born into this family. There's 6 of them on my on my mom's side, 4 on my dad's side, and they all grew up like siblings. And so I grew up kind of just wrapped in protection and love, one. And then I had a tough, well, when we go back, I'll talk about my adulthood, my childhood and up into my adulthood. But, and so I had like literally 100 people that I could call and be like, hey, can you make dinner? Or do you have salt? Or can you give me a ride? Like I got into a really bad car accident on August 12th. And people came and were like, okay, how are you going to get to clinic? How are you going to do this? Are you okay? And I had a concussion. I didn't even realize it. And I was like fuzzy. And they were like, oh, well, have you gone to the neuropsychiatrist? Have you done this? Have you done that? Like keeping me afloat. And they've done that my entire adult life. Since I had kids pretty young. Since I had my kids, they have been like, what do you need? How can we support? And so when I was ready to, I'll say that's my extended family. My parents are more kind of logical and don't do this, kind of fear. More, I guess, right? Your parents are gonna be more scared for you, so they're more cautious. But my extended family, like everything's expensive. I don't have any money. They're always buying my mural book. I was recording music for a while, buying my album and going to see my shows and, just all of these things. My son, I'm a student, right? So I don't have money. So my son did a suit for prom. My family just came and like hooked him up because I also stylistically challenged. So they hooked him up, and so I don't know if it would be nice to take that credit, but it really is just a ton of people that are all just like working and cheering.
And the cool thing about that is, oftentimes, as being a native of Milwaukee myself and working with children and families all throughout the county, the assumption is that none of us have help. None of us have support.
Right.
And the fact that you're here today and, acknowledging all of that help and support, that's very valuable,
Well, yeah. I mean, and it is not a mystery, right? Like people say, oh, well, how did you make it? Because I was a runaway and I had kids very young and I was kind of lost trying to figure out what to do with my life and had like ADHD stuff and domestic violence stuff, all of these things. And they're like, oh, well, you're rare. How did you make it? Like, you don't without a lot of support. It's not a coincidence. That's like the key. that's the hack, And so, yeah, you got to acknowledge it. I think that's something that people really struggle with, right? Because they think if you have privilege or if you have support, if you ain't get it out the mud, like you somehow didn't work hard or you're not as talented or you don't deserve the thing you work for. But nobody does stuff alone. That's just, we're born. Somebody had to feed you and somebody had to change you and keep you alive until you were able to do it for yourself. So none of us do that alone.
Yeah, absolutely. And then talk about how, with that support, it seems like it's not just you receiving, you're also on that giving end.
Oh, yeah.
Whether that be professionally or, how does that, look in your life as far as how Alicia pays that forward? Because doing some amazing things.
Yeah. Well, it's not like I don't know what you call it. It's not like a queendom, right? Where you just have all these people kind of working for you. Wow. It's like a network. So like my clinic duties might be less right now. So then my cousin needs a babysitter for her 18-month-old and he got COVID or, whatever. Okay. So then he comes over here. Okay, I'm going from one place to the other. Can I pick up your kid? Can I take him here? My grandparents, my girlfriends just passed these last couple years. We all had a shift, taking care of them. And since I lived a couple doors down, so then they need somebody to be overnight. Okay, cool. I'll take Thursdays from this time in the morning time. And I have a friend who's my age that had a stroke a few years ago, and my day with her is Thursday afternoon. So we come, we do our dinner, we make sure her meds is straight, we make sure, that kind of thing. And that's what we do. And the same with my parents. I have parents that live a couple doors down the opposite direction. And I won't say that they need a lot of support because they're only in their 60s and they're active and vibrant and all that. I want to give them their credit. But they still need love and attention and support in other ways. And I guess to answer your question is whatever I have is for us to have. There's nothing that I'm like clinching on to, even up to my, like, I think when I spoke to you before, I talked about how many kids I house. Like, there are very few people that won't have a place to sleep here. So I got into foster parenting because I had informally fostered so much.
Gotcha.
And so this was, I've always been a person that's like, I'm not a drinker, I'm not a smoker. I really am fun loving. Like, I'm a musical loving kind of Sesame Street, like I'm geeky and kind of quirky like that. So my house has always been a kid friendly place. And I'm also not, I've been through a lot and I've been in situations where people would look down on me and treat me a certain way. So I'm also not judgmental of parents. So what has happened to me a lot is somebody will say they trust me with their kid. Like, hey, I'm not able to do this right now, or this bad thing is happening with one of my friends' kids. Can I just bring them there? Or I'm really frustrated with this screaming and crying. I have a big family. Crying doesn't bother me. Kids doing kid stuff doesn't bother me. So, hey, drop them off. And so I think that's a big way, I think, too, that I probably give back is supporting parents and families in that way, just being a safe space, a safe person.
Wow. And then your journey through like academia, like how did you land to where you are? Like, like just, like you said, on the tail end of,
Yeah. 8 years.
Program. Yeah. Like how did that start for you?
Yeah. So I had a nonprofit a long time ago that was like, I sought to be like the link between young girls and the schools, because schools were afraid to talk to families. Families were afraid to talk to schools, and kids were kind of like falling by the wayside. And so what ended up happening was I ended up kind of being like, not a social worker, but like going into the house and managing a whole bunch of other stuff. And then answering a lot of questions for these young girls about their bodies, about like social health, mental health, sexual health, all these things that they had lots of questions about. I love that aspect of it. Like I love teaching and I love science. And so also my grandfather was a stay-at-home dad because he had epilepsy. And so he wasn't able to, nobody wanted him to work and sue them, so he was a stay-at-home dad. And so I was always curious about seizures. I have a goddaughter that has seizures. My uncle also struggles with seizures. And so I was interested in that. So I knew I had kind of just a passion for science and biology especially. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll go and be like a pharmacist, or maybe I'll go to school and do research about epilepsy. And so all that I knew, so I didn't know anything about careers in research. I thought everybody that did research was a doctor that did like research in their basement, like they funded their own research. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to school and I'm gonna be a doctor and I'm gonna do research in my basement. And so I decided, I said, okay, I'm gonna go to Concordia. So well first I couldn't find anywhere to go because I had this crazy schedule. I had little kids at the time. I think my kids were 1 and 2. And so I was like, I'm gonna go online because there's always those predatory universities online trying to take all your money. And at the time, I didn't know nothing. I'm like, okay, I'll get a refund check and a free laptop. I don't know.
Right.
So I signed up for this super expensive school. I won't say the name so they don't like sue me, but super expensive, not worth the money, school. But what it did do was it got me enough credits and enough A's for them to let me into Concordia in Mequon.
Wow.
Right? So, people always say, oh, if you don't get good grades in high school, no college will take you. It's a lie. A college will take you. They want your money. They want your money. A college will take you. it's the point is that not to waste your money once you get there, right? Figure out how you learn and what you like to learn and be like, okay, I'm here to get that. So I went to Concordia for a year and did a bunch of lab science stuff, immunology, microbiology, chemistry, all these things. And my professors started to say, like, what are you doing after this? What are you doing when you leave here? I'm like, I think I want to be a doctor and do research in my basement. And do research in my basement. And they were like, well, you could get like a PhD. And I was like, I don't know what that means. Like I knew there was such thing as a PhD, but the only people that I knew that got PhDs were PhDs in like education. So when you go to school, you have like Dr. So-and-so as your principal or whatever. And I still didn't know what a PhD, what the degree actually meant or where it was in the like rank of degrees, right? Because nobody teaches you that stuff. And then so I was like, okay, well, I got a few more years to do this. Maybe I'll get a PhD. So Concordia was way too expensive for me to pay for. So I stopped going there. And I started looking anywhere in the world that I could go to afford because I was working at the time. I think I was working at Cricket, and my kids were like 2 and 3 at the time. And I wasn't partnered. So I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I found a school in Grambling, Louisiana, Grambling State.
Wow.
And and they had a program called the MARC program. And it was, if you were interested in a research career, you could go to Grambling, join this program. Like you had to apply for this to get into this program. It was kind of competitive. You wrote a personal statement, all that stuff. And so they would pay you $969 a month, and they would pay $5,000 on your tuition. And the tuition at Grambling was only like $5,200 or something.
Gotcha.
And then I was poor enough, so I got a Pell Grant. So the Pell Grant, was above and beyond that $5,000 that I need to pay for tuition. And so I was able to go there, and I went from working at Cricket to working at Sprint there, which was better paying, and I could work less hours because I had that $1,000 from the MARC program. And so I was down there, and I was 26 years old by then. At that time, I felt like an old school, right? Because I was 26. But then I put old school, and the kids kept telling me I'm old. So I'm thinking I'm old. I was there 26. I had a 2 and 3 year old kid that they were in the hallway. I didn't have money for daycare. They were like sitting in the hallway. And I went there and just like got so excited about being in a new place, and the weather was warm and life was slow. Like I could go to the DMV, the grocery store, shopping, the bank. I could do all that in like 2 hours. The city was so small. Then I was on a weight loss journey, so I was working out with this trainer down there. And so I was just like having a great time, and killed undergrad the rest of the time I was there. Like the MARC program also took you to conferences. So science conferences. So I had never been to any conference. So the idea of going to a conference was foreign to me. Science conferences, you go there, and as far as you can see, there's people's posters. Posters are legit like science posters that you do in school, where there's a question that they're introduction, the question that they're asking, the experiment that they did, the results, the analysis. Like we all have seen that a million times. I didn't know it was a real thing. I thought it was just like a school, something they make you do in school. As far as you can see, that is the scientific method. It's everywhere. And they were asking real questions and doing real experiments and like finding out about how like genetics, everybody has their own, separate genes, but then they're expressed differently depending on what kind of molecules are attached to the genes. What? And then you could pass down those molecules to your children. Epigenetics. Like it blew my mind. The gut microbiome, like how all these different organisms inside the gut can affect your brain. They can affect your energy. They can affect like there's literally thousands of different ideas. And the MARC program that conference was geared toward minorities. It was called ABRCAM. So I don't remember what the acronyms mean, but it was geared toward minorities. So I'm coming from Milwaukee, where there's these wealth disparities and education disparities, all these things. And I'm going to a conference where I'm seeing Black scientists from all over, Black medical doctors, Black residents, Black med students, Black undergraduate students doing research, like doing strong research. And so it blew my mind. So then I was like, I'm getting a PhD. I'm getting a PhD. So then I was so fortunate. Like it's been really, really just a lot of fortune too. So this neuroscientist from UCLA really liked me. And he said, I want you to come to the Society for Neuroscience. It was in like Tennessee or something. And I'm like, bet, like you can fly me. I got kids. Like, what we going to do with them? Like, bet. And flew me to a completely different science conference. Not, it was a neuroscience conference, not a like minority research conference. So this was all brain questions, like all these different people from all over the world come into this place to talk about the brain. And so once I left there, he was like, you need to get your PhD. You need to come to my lab. You need to go. And I was interested in neuro because of epilepsy and depression, anxiety, all that. But he was like, you need to come to my lab. I have some coworkers at UCLA. They would love to have you at their labs. Like, go and, come and see what we have. So I went and I did an internship in LA. They flew me out there. That's another thing people don't tell you is that people pay for people to go places. People ain't just flying all over with their pocket money. Once people decide that they want to invest in you, they will give you money and not give it to you in your hand, but they will send you to Europe. They'll give you, I had a time where I didn't have any money to pay my bills. Somebody wrote a check out of their pocket to make sure that I was coming back to the school. So those things have happened to me all along the way. Anyway, so I go to UCLA, I do this internship, and I meet lots of other PhD students. And I'm telling them their story, like, I wanted to be a doctor that did research in their basement and, whatever. And they were like, don't get a PhD. And I'm like, why? And they're like, you really have a heart for community service. You really like to do other things. Like, you should do an MD. One, because MDs are going to make money. PhDs feel like they don't make a lot of money. From where I'm from, they make a lot of money. They make 80,000, 70,000, but for their investment in their time in school, a lot of times they feel like they didn't make enough. They're not making enough money compared to an MD that's making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $700,000. And so she said, don't get a PhD. Don't. And I think she was really unhappy, and she made me really unhappy in the lab with the research. And so I realized, okay, I do like people. I do like service. I don't love being in the lab all the time. I do like the ability to have a question and know how to construct experiments that answer that question, and how to pick apart somebody else's kind of ideas about things. I love that part of it, and I wanted to get trained in how to do that, because I really thought, how can you be a doctor and not? I thought they would have taught everybody that, but they don't, and that's a whole nother podcast. So I want to be able to do that and ask good questions and scrutinize other people's research. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to see if I can get into an MD PhD program, because I just heard like whispers of this program. I go and I Google MD PhD programs. There's not very many. Each program takes like 6, but they pay for your entire education, your entire graduate school education. They pay you like $30,000 a year and give you insurance, which for a single person without no kids is okay. Maybe that's struggling for somebody with kids. But I had struggled on $30,000 with no hopes of ever making no money. So I was like, okay. And I did also, for med school, they wanted a clean credit report, and I didn't have that. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to apply for MD PhDs. I go to my advisors at Grambling, and they were like, you're not competitive enough to get into an MD PhD program. Actually, they hadn't seen any of my stuff. They hadn't seen my med school entrance exams, nothing. They were just like, you're not competitive enough. So I called one of my cousins, crying, because I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do, and I don't have anything, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, girl, let them tell you no. You apply and let the MD PhD programs tell you no. So I took the med school entrance exam. I had already took the GRE. I was like, I had studied for the PCAT because I was thinking about going to pharmacy school. I'm just like making all my options, applied to some physician assistant programs and applied to MD PhD programs. So then after that, they interview you, you fly all over, or I greyhounded all over in a Walmart suit, greyhounded everywhere. And then people started saying, yeah. They start saying, yeah, and they start telling me, okay, we paid $31,000. You start on this day, blah, blah, blah. And then I got the acceptance from MCW, with the Medical College of Wisconsin. Wow. And so I really wanted to go to Meharry in Tennessee because I wanted to meet other Black doctors. And so I was like, okay, I got into Meharry, their medical school program, but not their MD PhD program. And they couldn't pay for the PhD part. They wouldn't pay for the PhD part. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going home because at this time my kids were 6 and 5 now, and so I knew I was going to need support. Everybody, all my people are here. So I'm like, okay, I'll go home. So I went home, and that was 8 years ago now. I did the first 2 years of med school. You take these board exams, your first year, your second year. And then you have a big break to do your PhD. Then you finish up your research and PhD. And then you go back to med school for those last clinical years and taking your last set of boards, all of that. And then you match to residency. And that's where I'm at now. I just matched into the Medical College of Wisconsin, which is my first choice this time. The Medical College of Wisconsin psychiatry program. And I chose them because they're one of the few psychiatry programs in the country that also train you in psychotherapy. And that had been something that I had studied in my gap time where I was getting my PhD. I also studied marriage and family therapy and started taking care of clients and stuff. So I knew that whatever psychiatry program I was going to be in, I wanted them to respect psychotherapy as treatment, not just like pharmacology.
Wow. And then, like, when you study the things that you've studied, like you talked about gut health and then, some other different things, how do you balance, like, okay, I know what I know, and I also see some of the challenges my community faces. How do you, that seems to be such a very delicate balance and can wear on you mentally. So, like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah. So I have a really unique set of experiences too, right? Like I'm an evidence-based person because I did all that like graduate school research and stuff. And so I've had experiences that have taught me what I don't know. Right? So we have a lot of practices in medicine that are based on evidence from what we knew or what we had evidence of, evidence is good for, or what works for certain things, and we keep collecting more evidence. But there's not a whole lot of evidence of what we don't know, right? And so graduate school, coupled with being kind of an outsider in all of the communities that I'm a part of, has kind of helped me to keep my mind open to things rather than closed to things. So when people have a hard stance on things like, oh, well, Western medicine sucks, you shouldn't take any pills, I only want natural this, my mind is not like, that's stupid. It's not that it's stupid. It's coming from a place of being informed about what Western medicine may not know, or how Western medicine has exploited certain communities, or how Western medicine is failing over and over and over again, or how Western medicine has violated your trust in a bunch of other ways, whether it was you or a loved one or whatever. So I also am opposed to when I'm in a clinical space and I hear somebody go, she has cancer and she's talking about fasting. I keep trying to tell her, like, that is not evidence-based, when the truth is, it really is. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know what we don't know, right? And so it is nice because everything for me opens up a question. So if you tell me, Alicia, I think that vaccines are bad for us, they're killing all the people in the Black community. that I don't go, that's the most ridiculous shit I've ever heard. I try to keep from doing that. And I go, well, tell me more. Why do you think that? So where was this person? And a lot of time the answer is they don't know. Nobody know. I don't know. Somebody, Nicki Minaj's cousin's friend, right? But I think people respond well to that respect, to that initial, I respect who you are. So I'm going to give what you're saying consideration. Where'd that come from? Tell me more. I think it's helpful as a therapist too, right? Because you kind of learn that it really don't matter what the reality of things are. It matters what this person thinks what their reality is, and now how do we negotiate that, and where do they want to be, that kind of thing. And it's the same in healthcare. If with our medicine, with our food, with our sleep, with our access to good, all kinds of things. If you start to get to the discussion, then you can open up conversation, and we can both get to better answers. No, did I answer your question? I don't know.
Absolutely, yeah. It's helpful because I think, as somebody who works with young adults, you're often met with some of that same, I feel this way.
Yeah.
And it's, like you said, tell me a little bit more about that. And it's like, it's often not founded in anything other than this is what I've been told.
Yeah.
Resonated with me. It is God.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does, right? When somebody so for example, I was just advised not to talk about not to use sound clips and stuff. But for example, when COVID first came out and people were saying, well, you can't get a virus unless you're injected with one. And I'm like, okay, tell me more about that, right? And because people have chickenpox, that's a virus. People get herpes, that's a virus. People get HIV, that's a virus. Mumps, measles, you have all these different things. Did you know that those were viruses too? No, but I'm just saying about this one. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. So it's not that you really want to engage me in the conversation. You want to tell me, and what I'm going to say to that? What can I say to that? Just like if you want somebody to stop smoking, or you want somebody to stop drinking, or you want somebody to, where are they at? Where are they at? What do they want? Are they at where they want to be? All of these different questions. Because it's like talking to a brick wall. And likewise, I found myself. So I have a lot of conversation. I try not to, but I keep getting pulled into conversations about Black masculinity and Black femininity. And I have a whole bunch of things that I come with, all these life experiences, all the experiences of people that I've seen around me. I got a lot of knowledge, right? All the couples that I've seen. So sometimes I can see how people talk to me about their experience, and what is absolutely true to them feels like them talking to a brick wall.
Wow.
And so I think respect and just humility goes a really long way. And also something that I realized in medicine too, especially in primary care, is that you don't have to change somebody's mind in this conversation. A lot of conversations that move you forward are conversations that happen through the relationship more than through your logic.
Wow. Say a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So when a person comes to you and you see that they haven't been checking their blood sugar, and they're not taking their insulin, and they're drinking alcohol. You think they don't already know they're not supposed to be drinking alcohol? Or you think that they don't understand that they got sick and their vision is going and their feet are tingling? Maybe they don't, right? So it's my job to make sure that they know. But before that, they got to know that I care, that I'm coming into that room and acknowledging that they're not drinking because they just want to drink. They caught the bus here. They came from a household where their mom drank all the time, or they had untreated anxiety and depression, or they got left in fear, and they're in fear for their life. They're homeless all the time. There is other stuff, and people need to know who you are and what your intentions are, especially they teach us about veterans a lot, especially veterans. And I always say what we had a whole course about the veteran culture, and that when they're swearing, they're not mad at you, and that when they don't, if you don't need to walk up too fast on them, you don't need to talk down to them like they're little kids, like, you know, sometimes doctors and nurses do that sing-songy, oh, are you okay today? That kind of thing. Don't do that, because they don't tend to like that kind of thing. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if they had that for African American people? Because that is the gap in the cultural gap is so profound that sometimes I'm with some of my colleagues and they don't even know that the person is getting agitated. They don't even know that the person has completely shut down. They don't know, like they're completely unaware of it because there's such a gap in cultural knowledge. But I think if you come with respect and humility, that first conversation can just be, hey, what's up? Like, what you want to talk about today? Okay, well, I want to talk about this fungus on my foot. Okay, cool. Let's talk about the fungus on your foot. I noticed that you got this hypertension. I noticed this. I noticed this. I noticed this. Do you have all your medications for that stuff? You have a way home? You got food? You got this? You got that? They might say yeah, and it not be true. But then just giving them a second, do you have any questions for me? Or black people, and I'm saying this from my own personal experience. I'm no expert on black people. I love when a doctor, a therapist, a teacher shares something personal with me, like makes a connection with me about something. So like I talk about my weight loss journey. And so like when people come in, they say, well, I know I'm not supposed to be drinking soda, but I got, you know, whatever. I'm like, look, I lost 100 and something pounds and gained 70 pounds of it back with Coca-Cola. Yeah. Tell me that makes sense. It doesn't. There's other reasons why people do behaviors that don't serve them. And so I get it. You get it. Now how can we do something about it? This is what I know to do. You have any ideas what's worked for you before? You know anybody that has stopped? You know, that kind of thing. And it goes a really long way just to build a relationship. And I don't know I think all people are that way, but especially people that have been marginalized and you come into a foreign space with foreign people and you just feel disconnected. So no, a lot of times you may not comply and you may not come back.
True. And sometimes, you know, I've experienced it and I've had family members experience it, whether that be like with a physician or whatever. And it's like, I was talking to somebody and they were like, it felt like speed dating. I'm here to check on these things and I have these health concerns, but it was really like, almost like move along. And it's like, you know,
right? Secretary, then billing, then the nurse, then the doctor, or then the PA.
Yes, like all of these different avenues is like, I don't even feel like a person. I just felt like I just willingly walked into a place and just had all of these transactions.
Yeah. And the doctors feel that way. I do not speak for all doctors, but I have been with a lot of doctors that feel that same way, and they're frustrated by that because they came into the system to connect and to help, and it's really hard to effectively connect and affect behavior change, get refills prescribed, take a note that insurance is gonna approve what you did during that visit. All of that is hard to do in 15 minutes.
Yes.
And it makes a lot of people, a lot of physicians in healthcare feel like maybe they are doing the wrong thing. Physicians have really high burnout, really high suicide, and students too. And so I think the frustration is mutual, but I don't think we ever really we'd say that. I had a lady that was telling me off. I got into the room and she was like, I've been here for 45 minutes. I mean, what are you? And they send you in here. Are you even a doctor? And I'm like, I understand. Like, I get it. 45 minutes is a long time to wait. And she was like, yeah. And they gave me metformin and they gave me diarrhea and I shit my pants. Like, she was just going off. And so a lot of people get so triggered by that they're like ready for combat too. And so they're like, well, look, I'm here and I'm ready to do this thing, and they want to move past that emotion. Cause they're not, I don't think we really acknowledge it as valuable, but that emotion, tending to that emotion is extremely valuable. Right. So especially if you try to make a connection with somebody, right? This woman is telling you that, and she had a weird belief too, a belief that I had never heard before about one of her medications or something too. And so a lot of that time, that 15 minutes was spent with her just getting it off her chest. And then I'm like, okay, so then I can understand what she really cares about. She really cares about not shitting her pants but also managing her blood sugar, which is fair. Yeah, that's fair. And so, one, I'm sorry. It doesn't happen very often with people, but sometimes it does. How about we take you down a dose? Because I still want to manage your blood sugar, but I don't want to put you on insulin because that's a whole nother beast. And then what other things are you doing to manage your blood sugar? Are you able to get some more sleep? Are you able to lower your stress? Are you able to change from this to the water, to carbonated water? Like, what other things can we do? Can I hook you up with a dietitian? That's what I think is something that I'll find really valuable in private practice, is being able to hook people up, not trying to come in and be the social worker and the dietitian and the patient educator and all the other stuff, but being able to know, okay, I can send him to DeMonte because he doesn't have a place. I can connect him with, this other person because he seems like he got a lot of stress. He needs some physical activity. He knows boxing. He should go over there to the boxing place. That kind of thing. I think just like my support system, I think everybody needs that kind of thing, including when you're trying to solve medical problems.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find that to be important just because, we're still, some of the young adults, for example, that I work with, or whether it just be the community, like, some people, even in my family, still just like won't go to the doctor unless they've got to go to the doctor. It's like, and like you said, like just dispelling those myths and things like that. So like, quick question for you. So like, if you were to dispel the different myths about, like you said, we talked about, yes, there are certain disparities.
Yes,
but like,
there are.
But maybe that just, maybe not necessarily, but talk about maybe the benefits of like, this is maybe why you should, maybe Western medicine is not everything, but why you should consider it being living in this space, for example, in this city and in America, of how that could benefit our community for addressing some of the issues that we're kind of just like trying our best to sweep under the rug.
Yeah. Well, for me, with all of my training, right, I might be like, I know what this problem is. I know what this disease is. Or I got a cough. I think I need a Z-Pack or whatever. I might think that, but one thing I don't have is a lab, right? I don't have no x-rays. I don't have no CTs. I don't have a microbiology place. I have no microscope, no swabs, nothing. And so that's one thing. Like, even if you have an idea about what it is, because you are the expert of your body, right? You don't have the equipment. Just like if you had a car, right? You might need to jack it up and get the right bolt things to unscrew the bolts and all that stuff. You might know how to do it, or you might be able to be like, oh, well, that's the alternator. But that's just one part of the problem. And then you may get to the mechanic who's been doing this every day, all day for 30 years, and he say, oh, it's not even the alternator, it's the battery. And you're like, oh, okay, fine, And the same thing about I love car scenarios because I suck at taking care of my car. I got a car in 2016 and drove it without a tune-up, without an oil change for 4 years.
Oh, that's pretty gangster.
4 years. So I'm driving up North Avenue and all of a sudden my car is like clicking and then smoke starts coming up from the hood, right? So I'm like, oh, what's this? And I can't drive it anymore. And I drove it until I couldn't drive it anymore. So I close it. I get a tow truck. They tow it to this guy that my dad knows, the mechanic. No, I towed it to Chevy because it was a Chevy Trax. I told it to Chevy. The man got on the phone with me. He was like, what is this? Like, have you gotten an oil change? I'm like, yeah, I think I got one like, I don't know, like a year ago. He's like, no, like all these filters and stuff are all clogged up and everything is messed up. And I'm like, oh, well, it was driving fine. And I think about that every time I see a patient when they come in with like blood pressures are 220 and don't want to get on medication, or weight 400 pounds and got hypertension, diabetes. They're not sleeping well. They sleeping sitting up in a chair. They can't have sex. They got erectile dysfunction. They have all these little signals, but they like, no, I'm fine. I get up. I'm alive, right? Like I'm working. But it's just like that car. Like, yeah, you working until you don't. And a lot of people die suddenly. I had a friend in her 30s with her son at the corner store, dropped dead. Wow. And so, and my friend that had the stroke while she was driving home from school with her son. And so, you are okay. You are, until you're not, until you find out that you're not. But then also, something that keeps people out of the doctor, including myself, I'm not immune to this, is anxiety. And I don't even know, let alone, so I have the language. I know how to code switch. I know all the different body parts. I know these diseases. I know the labs they're going to do. And if I have anxiety, picking up the phone and making an appointment, imagine what anyone else, if the anxiety that anyone else feels. I have people in my life that I love dearly that are brilliant people that will not call anywhere. They're like, you go ahead and call and order the food. You go ahead and call and talk, ask them the question. You know, I don't know what to say to them. You go ahead and do it. And so that's one thing, just the anxiety of going into a space, this foreign place. And there is the weight of the white gaze all the time, I feel. Wow. And that when Black people come into white spaces, there is processing that is happening. And so that costs them something. And so not only will it cost the time, right? They gotta go there. They gotta sit. They gotta trust that you're gonna come out and get them. They gotta trust that you're gonna understand what they say when they like, I don't know, my leg just fucked up. I don't know. They gotta trust that you're gonna do what you're supposed to do and that they're gonna come out better. On top of the discomfort of going in there and being under the white gaze. And so that's a lot. Yeah. That's a lot to ask. It's a lot to ask somebody who's on their way to work. It's a lot to ask somebody who has their kids at home. It's a lot to ask somebody that just argue with their mom and their baby's mom on the way. It's a lot to ask of people to take care of themselves in that way. And a lot of times they're not taking care of themselves in other ways either. They may not have ate, or they may have ate like crap. They may not have slept or slept like crap. They may not have showered. They may not have brushed their teeth. They may not exercise. They may not have nurture their relationships. So it's a lot to be like, okay, I'm gonna go tend to this diabetes that ain't killed me yet.
Like
that's a lot.
Tomorrow, wait till tomorrow.
Yeah. There's so many layers to every behavior, and so there has to be layers to the way that we target those behaviors. There's like that trust element. There's that financial element. There's that overall valuing your wellness, because Black people haven't had the luxury of valuing their wellness. And even my parents, who are not struggling, are not people that are struggling financially, they didn't teach me to value wellness. They taught me to survive. Get this skill and go and survive. Yep. That's it. And so I think there has to be, and I think it is happening, right? There is this kind of like, oh, we need to meditate. Oh, go listen to music, burn some sage. And, there's some of this stuff that's starting to come up where people are like, no, you're not going to bring me bad energy. People are starting to have that kind of dialogue, which was not happening 10 years ago. And so I think the tide is changing. I think one of the problems is that while the tide is changing, there's also this influx of media, right? And media, social media, the internet, like, elevates all voices the same. So you got the expert at the same level as the person that just decided they woke up and had a theory. And that's problematic, especially when you have somebody that just woke up and had a theory that decides that they're going to exploit the needs of African Americans. Right? So African Americans have a need to have their Blackness embraced and celebrated. Like that is something that we are starved for. So you have somebody that's white and like, oh, well, Black people are dying from diabetes. We need to give you insulin. Insulin works like this, which is completely correct. But then you have somebody that's like, sister queen, grand rising, we're going to take these herbs, and they're exploiting the same, right? They're exploiting the same way as Big Pharma. They got ginger root and this other stuff that they have not vetted. And so just like in any other realm, Black people are so vulnerable to exploitation because of our needs and our trauma. And I don't know how to fix that. But I know that it doesn't. I know that doing this doesn't work. trying to fight emotional need and psychological need with logic does not work, or with data on a piece of paper from some lab that you don't know, that it doesn't work. It doesn't.
Yeah, I find it has to be somewhere. Maybe it's a little bit of both, but it's not one extreme or the other extreme.
No.
Like you said, with different thoughts and ideas and culture shift.
Yeah.
We're learning that, this is not a binary world that we live in. It is not this and that. So we should be open to exploring all things of who we are as human beings. So
yeah. Wow. And there's some things that are tried and true, right? If you bleeding out, you want to go to the ER. If you have overwhelming infection and your blood pressure is dropping and you going out, you want to go to the ER. Now, if you want to figure out how to live well and decrease your stress and be overall well, probably not at your doctor's office. Right. That might be at your spiritual people or your family and your community. And I think where that balance is individual is very individual, right? Because some of us are more logical, some of us are more emotional, some of us are more spiritual. So I think that, where you fall and what you need from those different communities differs, but there is truth to things. There is truth. Chamomile will sedate you. It might make you feel yourself, but it will sedate you. And your doctor's not going to prescribe chamomile, but your grandma might tell you go get some tea. You know what I mean? Okay, drink some tea and some lemon or some honey or whatever. And the doctor is going to give you a blood pressure medication. If you tanking, we got something to give you to tighten up your blood vessels and get blood to your brain, and we can watch it on the screen. And so that's the truth, And so I think people really have to be open to truths.
Yeah, one of my favorite phrases is 2 things can be true. It's okay. It's this or that.
Yes.
Indeed, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And we live there. We live in that place, right? Where there's multiple things that are true.
Yeah. And then with all that you do, and like you talked about earlier, your support system and things like that, and in your fitness journey, but what else does self-care look like for you? Because, this is a great time to be recording this. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. And, and I know you beyond the cliche that we've been hearing as of late in the workspaces.
Yeah.
But what do you do to take care of self to kind of keep you being who you are?
Yeah. So the mind and the body talk to each other constantly. There's no separation between the two. So while I have been trying to decrease my stress and have a good attitude and attitude of gratitude and all that sort of stuff, it did not work well when I hadn't had enough sleep. So right now I'm working on having a nighttime routine, which is hard. It's hard. So I'm single, so I date, right? So my nights look different all the time, but having a nighttime routine and protecting it, planning for it, so that I can get some sleep. Also, I was taking things to help me sleep all these years because I know I had to get up in the morning. I was having so much anxiety. So getting some exercise, so I'm tired. Turning off social media. So I struggle with social media because it's like reading 1,500 people's diaries. every day. And there's a lot of pain and a lot of trauma and a lot of things that as a therapist and as a psychiatrist, I want to message and be like, oh, I'm sorry you feel that way. Have you been blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
Like, seriously, and you know, people just say all kinds of stuff on social media. So it gets really heavy on my heart sometimes. So I have to get off social media. So that's one self-care thing I do. I exercise in the evenings. I try to get some sleep at night and stay off social media until I have time, like the emotional bandwidth for it. I try my best to nurture my relationships that I really, really, really need to pour back into me, like my kids. If I didn't think I was being a good mom, I would be miserable. So actually connecting with them and seeing what they need and encouraging them because they're awesome. Encouraging them and just like trying to be present for them is important for my own mental health. And likewise with my parents, who are a whole kettle of worms, but being of service to them by being present with them and getting what they're trying to teach me and stuff, that's important. Something that I really am becoming aware of now that I'm maybe we'll have some money in the future, is that people really like to financially exploit. I don't know if they only do it with women. I think people always financially exploit people, but I think I'm realizing that because of our community and the lack of like resources and like ability to make money, people are just taking. They're like, oh, can you take me to work every day? Oh, mama, I need a haircut. Oh, can I do this? Can I do that? So, being okay with being compassionate for what's going on with people, and also finding peace with saying no and not understanding that if somebody has to make me choose me or them, that I have to choose me. And they have to choose them. They have to. That is the way that it should be. And that's okay. That has been hard for me because I always feel like I want to help people. I'm the kind of person that'll pick up a homeless person or a crazy person off the street and take them to somewhere else so they could eat and sleep and, you know, whatever, and not danger because I'm rough, but not worry about that. And so I have to remember that it's okay. It doesn't make you less of a loving person or less of a Christ-like person to tell somebody, no, you can't have my last to go smoke or to do some business venture that, you know, your 20th business venture. It's okay for me to say no and to choose me when somebody's making me choose them or me. Anybody.
Oh, that makes sense. And I appreciate that. That will definitely be one of our clips of this show.
Don't make me choose.
Sure.
Don't make me
That's
choose.
right. That's right. So then I want to end on a little bit of fun. I mean, I think just listening to your story, I mean, it's an amazing story. And I know we were fortunate to connect before, but I feel like myself, as well as anybody listening, got to learn a little bit more about your journey and things like that. And like along that journey, I always like to say, like, you know, we have our own soundtrack to life, you know?
We do. I have
It's
that
like
tattooed on me.
you literally have this thing, you know, and I wanted to just ask you, like, what's a song that just resonates with you that, you know, doesn't matter what time of day, what year it is, you hear this song and it's like, I know this song, I love this song. This song has helped change my life in some shape or form.
Oh, that's so hard. That's
So
such
okay,
a hard
you can give me like
question.
2 or 3, because I mean, you know, throughout the journey, there's always different things, different moods. So if you can give me a couple of songs that you're like, yep, I'm bumping that, you know,
So
still to this day.
not bumping it, but something that I hear a lot, especially like if I'm like getting up at 4 a.m. and having to go to work or something, is this song called "Little Things" by Indy Ivory.
Love that. Okay.
And she's just talking about like how a cup of coffee, a call from her sister, the sunshine, you know, just regular things. It's the little things and the joy that they bring. Like, she's been all over the world and I still haven't seen anything like my neighborhood. And that is so true for me. Like, I have been everywhere with all different people and all different greatness going on, but there's nothing like when I hit that corner of 26th and Burleigh and I'm coming and I'm passing the house I played in front of and where my grandparents was, and this house burned down, but Miss Lovey used to live here, and I played Legos with Kiki. You know, all of this stuff, like that stuff is true, and it keeps it. Something I was gonna say about self-care earlier, but I didn't want to just like have that little bit of thing, because there has to be like process. Gratitude. That song, it gives me such a spirit of like gratitude. So one day I was getting up and I was on my way to Freighter to do an overnight. 4:00 in the morning, you get there. No, not an overnight. You're gonna be there from 4:00 a.m. to 7:00 p.m. So not an overnight. And it was so early. I hate getting up in the morning. I was on my way to trauma surgery. So I was hearing gunshots all the way here, all the way there. Yeah. And then I get there and you got your pager going off, gunshot victim, 19, glass, score. There's these scores of like consciousness. This score is this and that. And so I'm like, I can't wait for this rotation to be over. I hate this. I can't wait for school to get over. I left my kids at home. Like, I'm hungry. I hate this. And I was thinking to myself, there's going to be a day where I can't walk down the stairs. My legs won't carry me. There's going to be a day when I open my eyes and my vision's going to be blurry. There's going to be a day where I can't feel the wind on me. There's going to be a day where I can't drive anymore. There's going to be a day where I can't cognitively do what I'm doing now and meet these people. I'm not going to see these people anymore. This person that got shot, I'm going to see them now and be able to be there for them right now. I might not ever see them again. I had a patient that passed away on me in the ER, and it stuck with me because that was one of those days where I was like, I'm going to be grateful for being there. And I was so grateful because he was up and he was talking and then he was gone. And so I think that song, The Little Things, is something that I play a lot because it is very grounding, and your quality of life is just better when you're grateful.
Agreed. Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I feel like this has been an amazing show, and you're always welcome back anytime.
Oh yeah.
New going on. When you're releasing that book and
okay.
the poetry, please definitely come back.
And if you know any poets,
I actually do.
Yeah, if you know some poets, tell them to come help me, and we can. I'm so open that we can collaborate. They can help me figure it out and organize it, whatever. They can just submit something.
That sounds great. Well, again, you're always welcome here, and thank you all for listening. This has been a Dope Public Health Podcast with love, respect, and advocacy.
Time goes by, I'm getting closer to the sky.